Before we begin, since this is a BBC-owned property, I feel the need to point out that the news arm of the BBC has a continuing issue with transphobic leanings in its news coverage. You can find in a pinned comment below various videos from both myself and other YouTubers covering this issue. And while I understand that the Doctor Who creative team is not responsible for this, I will continue to point this out for as long as it remains a consistent issue. Thank you.
Well, I suppose if anything was going to get me to drop an extra video this week, it would be fashion. That was a really dumb lead-in. I'm not a super fashionable person. I don't really care about fashion. As is evidenced by the fact that I'm sitting here in a damn t-shirt anyway. So there's been a number of things that have been sort of trickling out about Doctor Who that I haven't really talked about, and I think it was starting to become conspicuous by my lack of discussing it. So you get an extra video this week. Huzzah! So there was the initial thing that a lot of people wanted me to talk about or assumed I had an opinion on, which was the casting of Jinkx Monsoon in the upcoming Doctor Who series, which will feature Ncuti Gatwa as the 15th Doctor. And I didn't really have much of an opinion on that. I'll get to why in a second. Ultimately, then two more things happened, one directly related to that and one not necessarily so far as we know, but all Doctor Who connected, that made me go, okay, like I should cover these, and if I'm going to do those, I'll just round up all the stuff I haven't talked about yet. And so that was the costume reveal, new additional costume reveals for the Doctor and the companion, looking all very 60s and decked out with a very different look, especially for the Doctor. And then the actual costume reveal for the still at present unidentified character that Jinkx Monsoon is playing. So let me come back to the first thing. The fact that I didn't really have an opinion on Jinkx Monsoon's casting. And the reason I don't really have an opinion on that is because I don't know them. I had to go back and forth on the pronoun thing because I know that as a drag performer, they will be referred to as she, but outside of drag, they are non-binary and use they, them pronouns. But at the same time, I look at this casting and this image and I'm like, wait, are you performing as drag? And I don't know, I'm going with they, them. It makes the most sense to me. So yeah, I don't know them. I don't know their work. I stopped watching Drag Race after the 4th season. I'd gotten whatever enjoyment I was going to get out of the concept and out of the kinds of things it was doing. I was ready to move on. I did. I haven't come back. I don't want to. Please don't encourage me and say, oh, but watch this season. It's really good. Like, I don't want to. I don't want to watch Drag Race. So there's that. Technically, I have seen some of their work in that they voiced a character in Steven Universe. The problem is I don't remember Emerald, the character they voiced. That character appeared in one episode. There were over 150 episodes of this thing. I don't remember them. So, sorry. And I don't really have much opinion to give when I have no basis by which to judge how they're going to perform this. This is part of why I have not had as much to say about any of the casting so far, be it the casting for the Doctor, the casting for the companion. Like, I don't know the work of these people. So when people are like, do you think they'll do a good job? I'm like, I don't know. We'll find out. And it's kind of the same thing. I think there was a bigger assumption here that I would have an opinion because Jinkx Monsoon is a drag performer, is non-binary, and there's, I guess, a presumption that inherently makes me either know more about them or be more aware of them or to care more. Like, look, I'm glad that the casting is, bringing in, unusual choices. I'm down with that as a general principle. Cool. But I have no particular investment in Jinkx. And that's not me saying, I don't think they'll do a good job. Like, I have no idea. I do have a little bit of opinion on the costume, though. But we'll come back to that. Let's talk about the 60s outfit for the Doctor and the companion. I mean, now, the companion, it's an alternate look. Cool. That's fine. The Doctor feels more notable for a couple of reasons. The first is that While there have been variants on different outfits for the Doctors in the modern era, obviously David Tennant had the pinstripe suit, but also the blue suit, and the 11th Doctor, went with tweed, a longer coat. He had the purple look. The 12th Doctor, started out, very tightly buttoned up, and his look loosened over time. But he always had, the long coat. I mean, he had a couple different ones. But the thing is, there was usually a through line of consistency somewhere in there. With Tennant, it's just, well, it's a suit. Here's one suit, here's another suit, different suits. With Matt Smith, it was the same general makeup, just changing up what the jacket was, or the material, or the color scheme, but like always a jacket, always a bow tie. And in the case of Capaldi, always layering it the same way, always having that jacket on the outside. Sometimes we had a hoodie, sometimes we don't, but then there's something underneath that. So like it's still a general assembly of the look, still pretty similar. This is really different from the other look that we've seen from Ncuti Gatwa. And more to the point, it's within the same series. Because generally, more severe variants, like I'd say the one who varied the most might have been Capaldi, or maybe arguably Smith. Given going from the more professorial look to, the whole purple thing. But like that was across multiple series. And same with Capaldi, the major shifts in terms of how tightly buttoned up he was in his first series to how loose his look was in later ones, that was over multiple series. This is stuff from the same series. So that's interesting that they're varying up his look that much within the same series. Because this is not the same feel, like at all, in terms of the construction of the look, the color scheme. This is very different. Then there's also the hair, and I do wonder about that. I saw it suggested, and this would be an interesting thing, that like, is it possible they got trapped in the 60s for a while? Kind of like what happened to Martha and David Tennant in Blink, where they were stuck in a decade for a little while and she had to get a job. It makes me wonder that because like his hair was really closely cropped in the earlier reveal. This is something else altogether. So, I mean, I suppose logistically, there's three possible explanations. It's a wig, and as a practical matter, it probably is, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a wig in universe. That would be an interesting choice for the Doctor to start messing around with wigs. I think you could work with that, but I don't know. So there's that. There is the possibility that enough time has passed that it's just started to grow out. If it does, would he keep it for episodes after that? That'd be interesting. I mean, not like massively, oh, this changes everything, but like, oh, variable look that kind of sticks. That'd be kind of neat. Then another possibility, can he just will his hair a little bit bigger, a little bit longer? I don't know. I mean, I suppose with everything else the Doctor can do, why not? What the heck? But it just added one more thing to make this look so distinctly unlike, because like it doesn't even match the silhouette, even just of his head, for the look that we've seen before, which again, that's kind of interesting. I'm kind of curious to get full context on that. And again, it is a sharp look. I will say that it is consistent with the earlier look as far as that goes. This is a dapper, well put together, sharp look. So we do have a consistency of strong fashion sense for this Doctor. Just, actually, now that I think about it, if he has that strong fashion sense, it would make more sense for him to shake it up maybe more than other Doctors would. Yeah, sure. Because like you get somebody like Jodie Whittaker who literally threw her outfit together out of stuff in a charity shop. It kind of makes sense that she's not so fashion conscious as to really ever change her look over the 3 series that she had, other than occasionally wearing the red shirt instead of the blue one. But if he's going to look this sharp and put together and fashion forward, like, yeah, he would have multiple looks. Okay, cool. Jinkx Monsoon's look makes me nervous. And again, keep in mind, this has nothing really to do with them as a performer, because I don't know them. That having been said, there's a very high camp look to this. Part of me wants to go, we don't know if that's necessarily the makeup and the hair that they're going with, but like, given their nature as a drag performer and, why would you do a professionally shot reveal of the costume but have not the correct hair and makeup? That'd be a very strange choice if they did that. So I'm going to assume that it is accurate to how they will look. Now, it has now been confirmed that they are playing a villain, which is a very villain look. And it's a very camp villain look. And again, this is not about them. This is about the fact that the camp aspects of the Davies run, especially in Series 1, were some of the stuff that I liked the least when I first saw it, and I've never fully come around on. The more camper instincts that he has, while I'm not going to say are ill-fitting to Doctor Who has a lengthy history of varying degrees of camp, intentional or not. But the thing is, Davies, RTD, and his love of that aspect, it's not mine. I mean, this is something that happens with anything that runs this long. The things that I love about Doctor Who may not necessarily be the things that other audience members or indeed showrunners love about Doctor Who, and they may choose to bring forward certain aspects that aren't the things that I'd like to see emphasized. And for me, camp kind of falls into that. Now, I've softened a little bit on it over time versus how I first felt when I would see stuff like the burping trash can from Rose, or even an episode like Voyage of the Damned and villains like Max Capricorn. Like, I don't love them. I will never love them. I tolerate them at this point. I'm like, it's there. It is what it is. But it's not something I was ever going to request more of. And seeing a villain presented looking like this, that I'm not going to say it's impossible for this to be a more seriously toned villain, but it would be a very odd choice to have a more seriously toned villain present like this, especially with sort of the piano motif, which has also led to some speculation that this might be a musical villain, if not a lead-in for a musical episode. And I won't spend too much time speculating on that, but I will say I'm personally not super enthused by the notion of a musical episode of Doctor Who. I know musical episodes were a huge thing for a little while, like, I don't know, a decade back or so. More than that now because I'm old. And while some of them were good, some of them were great even, it's not a thing that I need more of necessarily. And again, it's something I will say that if you're going to do a musical episode, you probably would do well with a more camp villain. So like if this is a villain for a musical episode, or at the very least the villain themselves is going to be bursting into song, then leaning into the camper aspects for that character or that story is probably a good idea. But again, this just indicates potentially a lean into aspects of Doctor Who that aren't generally what I'm here for. And if it's a one-off and just like one crazy episode amongst the series that is doing a bunch of other stuff, it probably won't bug me too much, even if I don't like it. But if it's an indicator of the tone of the entire thing, that would be a point of concern. Now, given that it's not confirmed that Jinkx Monsoon is playing a recurring villain, I don't really have a ton of basis on which to get too worried beyond whatever specific episode this is going to appear in. So I look at this, and again, to reiterate, has nothing to do with Jinx themselves because I don't know their work, but I look at this look, this outfit, this makeup, this hair, and I go, oh, it just brings to mind the kinds of instincts that RTD sometimes had with Doctor Who that just don't click fully for me. I know a lot of other people are really excited, either because they're more familiar with Jinx's work or because they do enjoy the camper aspects of Doctor Who. And for those people, I'm happy for you. Because if this stuff's going to be done, somebody should love it. Somebody should be excited for it. And honestly, I hope most people are. It's hard for me to be, though, until I actually see it in execution. Now, it's not impossible that I will end up enjoying whatever specific character or story this ends up all playing out in. However, given what it appears to be leaning into, it's going to make it a little bit tougher for that to be something that's really going to land right with me. It might. Like, one of my favorite things, and I've said this repeatedly, and I'll keep saying it, one of my favorite things is to watch something that I don't think is going to work for me and having it work, and I go, oh, that surprised me in the best way because I didn't think I was even going to like it, and I loved it. And sometimes that happens. It's rare, but when it does, it's a super special thing, and I'll always hope for it, but I won't expect it. Because if I expect it, then I'll be disappointed in addition to not enjoying a thing. And I don't need to add that onto, my feelings for an episode of a show that I love and want to continue to love. So those are sort of my general thoughts and feelings on some of the stuff that has gone on lately. Hold up, breaking news. Yeah, I gotta jump in here because 2 days before this video is scheduled to go live, more news broke. They really do time the release of these things just to mess with me. I am convinced at this point. So, Murray Gold, the composer for Doctor Who Series 1 through 10, plus all the specials in between all those, is returning to score Doctor Who. He's replacing Segun Akinola, who did the compositions for the Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall era. And this... that I'm actually right now genuinely, legitimately getting very nervous as more and more of this pulls together. I said when RTD was first announced to be returning that my faith in this being something worth watching was an inherent trust that he was going to do something new with it and not just repeat or attempt to recapture what it was he did in the mid-2000s. That he was going to come in with fresh ideas. He's grown, he's changed as a creator, I think he's gotten better in a lot of ways. He's become a more nuanced, more intricate, more thoughtful writer in quite a few areas, and I was really interested to see that applied. And I kind of was a little bit more forgiving of the return of David Tennant than I would have been otherwise, partly for that same reason. Like, oh, what different thing is he going to do with Tennant? But the more things fall into place, the more I'm getting legitimately scared that this is going to be more a recapturing of what was done before and less a reinvention or a new take or a new way of doing it from a creator who had done it before. Because at this point, let's set Tenet aside, because it is just the specials, and then after that we have Shudigato. So let's focus on that. We have a returning showrunner, working with multiple returning producers, and now a returning composer. And then there's what I talked about with Jinkx Monsoon, which has the potential to indicate a return of a specific type of flavor that he brought to this property before. That is one I don't really want to see return, not heavily. I have not given up hope. I'm not there. I'm trying to be more optimistic than that. But the more things fall into place, the harder it is for me to have a ton of faith in the idea that this isn't going to be a repeat. Now, is it impossible for it to be something new and exciting and just have all these existing pieces in place? No, it's not impossible. Of course not. But the more things that line up to how he was doing it before, the less just reasonable an expectation that he's not going to do the same thing feels. And again, it's possible, and I'm going to hold on to that hope, but that's the thing. It's now a hope. It was faith. I had faith he wasn't going to just try and recapture and redo the same thing. I don't have faith anymore. I have hope, but that's a lot more fragile. That's not based on as much because my faith was getting undercut with each new announcement that just lined up with stuff that he did before. And Murray Gold very much falls into that. And whether or not you liked the music from Series 13, 11, 12, 13, whether you liked that at all or liked it better or worse, I don't think this is a great notion. Like, I enjoy Murray Gold's soundtracks. Actually, I really hope that now that he's back, they will sort out whatever freaking licensing issue he was holding up that was keeping us from getting an official release of the soundtrack to Series 10. At the very least, I better get that out of this deal. Because if that doesn't happen, What the But I was ready to be done with him. And I didn't think the music for the Chibnall era was amazing, but it was also doing something very different. It was more ambient music. It was more for atmosphere, and it was way less bombast, which I think is a valid way to score, well, not just Doctor Who, score anything. And again, I like Murray Gold stuff. I love a lot of Murray Gold stuff. But bringing him in again doesn't give me a lot of confidence right now that it's going to be new and fresh. Honestly, the only repeat thing I wanted was RTD himself. And I wasn't nervous at the time that he was working with older producers. I figured that was just a comfort thing. But I'll tell you what's the thing that might diminish my hope to a very dull flicker. Right now, the only writer that we have confirmed is RTD himself. I did a video about the rumor that Moffat might come back. I did a video there. I honestly don't think that's going to happen, but that was more talking about the possibility of if he did. So I'm not going to put a lot of credit into that at this point, but once we get additional writers announced, if it's all writers who not only wrote for Doctor Who before, but wrote for Doctor Who under RTD before, I'm going to have almost no hope left that this is going to be something new and not just a recapturing of what it was before. Because that's about the last piece to be put in. I was willing to roll with Tennant and Donna coming back as a send-off just for the specials and with the hope that it would go in a new direction after that. But now so many of the things that are being put in place, it's old stuff. Now, it's possible that the performers, the Doctor and the Companion, and whatever else ends up going on, it's possible that those things will bring enough new energy to still feel to some degree fresh. But between all this stuff, and I didn't even mention that he's already launching into spin-offs and planning them already right off the bat, which is another thing that makes me nervous. Every announcement that just is bringing back the old people from when he did it before, I have less and less hope in what initially had been my very prominent faith that he would do something new. That faith is gone and the hope is dwindling. And look, I do understand the concerns about bringing in a whole bunch of brand new writers. There were some issues when Chibnall tried to do that, but there isn't necessarily a reason to bring in the people who specifically wrote under you and specifically wrote for Doctor Who. You can find experienced writers. You can, bring back some stuff that wrote some scripts for Moffat, but maybe not for RDT or RTD. Sorry, I hope I didn't mess that up and rearrange the letters elsewhere. But look, this really stresses me out. And again, I like Murray Gold. Objectively, I like his music better, but I was also ready to be done with it just so that it could be one thing that didn't feel like the old flavor. And it's coming back. I really hope the specials are great. I don't need a repeat of what happened with the Chibnall era, where I came in going, I'm excited to see what's new, and then just get let down over time. Now, it wouldn't be a total repeat, because in the case of Chibnall, there actually was a fair bit new, but it still let me down for various reasons, whereas this, it would let me down by not being new. I'm getting real nervous. I'm getting real nervous. And I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. I want to be wrong. I want these fears to just get completely blown away, put to bed. Just go, well, that was dumb that I was ever nervous. That's how I want to feel. But I can't change the way how I feel right now, which is, this is a lot of old stuff. I was going to try and just cut this in with my old outro that I shot in the original video. I can't remember how I did that, so I don't know how to lead into it. So this is now the outro. What are your thoughts on all this stuff? The costumes, Jinkx Monsoon, Murray Gold, any of it, all of it. Do people think I'm overreacting in my nerves? Yeah, probably. But whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills, enables me to do this as my living, and even if you can't help me out with that, like, share, subscribe are also a big assistance. But what I really want you to remember is that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. Nervous or excited, you are the council, and I am just running the meeting. So until next time, this council is adjourned. My thanks to all my patrons, but in particular, I want to thank Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfula, Sarvis, Tarak, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Ruth, Oliver B., Solitary Pictures, Ulrich Bogdan, Melinda Walters, Imudelki, Leotha Boyd, Auntie Kate 808, Becky Sparks, Fernambulax the Poodle, Robin Powell, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Tim Price, Adam RDL Taylor, Goddess Alida, I'm not sure. David Hall, Shayla Gourlay, Rosalind Bennett. You want to hear me mess up your name too? It's in the Patreon perks. I gotta work on that.